Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com.
Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Franklin Rouse of Franklin Rouse State Farm here in Leland. Franklin, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Frank, it is an honor. Certainly a privilege to be able to join your podcast. Been following it, and I'm a big fan. Didn't think I'd have the opportunity to come on here, and I appreciate the invitation. Proud to be here.
Well, if there's anybody, other than a politician, an insurance agent can probably talk for about an hour with no notes. I figure
We're
you're
not gonna have a problem
perfectly
filling up the time.
qualified to be on here.
Yeah,
And
plenty to talk about.
There is, and obviously we're in the middle of or toward the end of hurricane season, and I'm sure that's something you'll talk about in a minute. So far, we've had a relatively okay one here in this area, but I'm sure we'll come back to that. But let's start out with some non-business topics. Now, obviously, we are in an area where a lot of people are moving in. We've got thousands of people moving into Brunswick County and surrounding areas every year. And obviously, your business probably deals with a lot of those people as they come in and need to be insured. But with that in mind, if you're not from this area, tell us where you're from and how you wound up in this part of the state.
Yeah, so I am from Eastern North Carolina. I'm not necessarily from Southeastern North Carolina. So my family is from Kinston, which is in the coastal plains, agriculture community. We moved to Carteret County when I was a child. Grew up in Emerald Isle, Morehead City. Went to NC State. Proud alumni, as I know you are. Go Pack.
Not much to cheer for right now in football.
Well, the basketball season's right around the corner. There's always the next season,
Exactly. Just like every year, there's wait till next season.
Always looking forward to the next season. Long-suffering fan, you get it for sure. I went to school at NC State. I worked for State Farm right out of college. Worked for an agency in the Triangle area for a while. Worked for a corporate for a couple of years. Always knew I wanted to go into agency of my own, be a small business owner. Wanted to come back to coastal North Carolina. There was an opportunity in Leland. I remember telling my father there was a scratch agency, meaning there were no files. So it started, no cost solution. I remember telling my father that, I was going to take this opportunity in Leland. And he's like, why would you want to go to that little town just south of, there's nothing there. And I was like, clearly he didn't understand. Well, what was
a lot of people didn't.
And what was coming, 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot here. But thanks to some, really strong business minded people, thanks to the government leadership to create an opportunity. And I knew the development was coming. I knew folks were going to move here. I knew they would want to live here and would want to continue to live here. And as a 25, 26-year-old, it was the smartest decision I've ever made in my life to open up an agency here. As you know, we both moved here about the same time. You're from here, of course, but you moved back to Leland about the same time that I moved here.
I moved back full time in December of 2008. When did you start your agency?
Yeah, June of 2008. So I'm in the 18th year. Yeah. Yep.
Hard to believe it's been that long. It seems like I just got back.
It's crazy. It's just when you're busy and you're focused and then you have family and just things like that. It's just the time goes by so fast.
Time does fly.
It really does. But what a great run it's been.
Well, and you mentioned, that this is a great place that people want to live. Let's talk about that. What are some of your favorite things outside of work to either do or go, or places to eat or things to see in this part of the state?
Yeah, so I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, so they occupy almost all of my free time. But there are plenty of great places to go, of course, in Wilmington. I like to play golf. Not very good at it. Wish I grew up playing it, but I did not.
Golf makes me very angry.
Yeah, yeah. Me too. But I love to play golf. We love a good bald head. One of the most underutilized places in this area is Bald Head Island, which we went there more as a family. I mean, it is truly a special place. Um, we currently live in Wilmington. My wife is an administrator at Cape Fear Academy,
Okay.
which is in Wilmington. So we live kind of in between our work, and so we spent a lot of time on Rice Beach, spent a decent amount of time in Carolina Beach, but we are truly blessed and privileged to live in an area that just has so much cool stuff to do.
Well, and you mentioned that you grew up in coastal North Carolina. Obviously, it was a different part of the coast, Morehead City, and that's
Hmm.
if you grew up at the coast, it probably was in your blood even before you got here to be at the coast.
Yeah, and I'd be honest with you, I've kind of took it for granted as a kid. But I mean, when in high school, I remember 15, 16 years old, getting out of high school and riding bikes over to the marina and hopping. My family didn't have a boat, but I had plenty of friends who did. And we'd hop on a Jones Brothers bateau and go screw around as a teenager. And I'm like looking back on that, like, wow, what a life that
What
was.
a great childhood, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So my mom still, my father's passed. My mom still lives in Morehead. So we'd like to go back there. And, if you're any listeners or viewers, particularly if you're new to the area, strongly encourage you to seek out, Carteret County, Morehead City, Beaufort area. Beaufort in particular is a really great day trip. There's so much to see, a couple hours away. So ostensibly you can make a day trip out of it. But we're so fortunate to have the resources we have, not just southeastern North Carolina, but all of these.
Right. I was in Beaufort for a meeting Friday night or Thursday night and Friday and drove back Friday afternoon to beat the storm. And I'll say I caught the ugliest fish I've ever caught in the channel at Morehead City. It was a toadfish that was like
Yeah.
a bowling ball with teeth. It had a really bad attitude.
Where were you fishing?
We were in my friend's boat floating in the channel between Morehead and Atlantic Beach. This is years ago.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
not this trip, but well, let's change gears a little bit and talk about your business. Obviously, you've got an insurance agency here in Leland. Talk about the kind of clients you typically work with. I know that could be anything from businesses to individuals to whatever types of clients you prefer to work with, and what types of policies you provide, and how you work with clients.
Yeah, so I mean, we're retail, major name brand insurance, so we take all comers. We deal with all types of people at all different points in their lives. Folks that don't have a lot of assets and have a hard time making premium payments, to folks that have retired here and they've decided to move their entire life to Leland. Um, you know, State Farm is who I'm with is very well known for auto insurance and homeowners insurance. So we do a whole lot of those two things. Of course, we do life insurance as well. Do some small business insurance, but home and auto and life are really our focus. So our agency has grown with the area, with all the amazing development here, and all the amazing people that have moved here. All the new construction, people moving into the area, they're looking to establish new relationships, with all of their financial services providers, including insurance. And so, we've been able to do that for a lot of people. I'm proud of that. I'm certainly proud of our reputation. I'm proud of the team that we've built here. I'm proud of the agency we've built. And it's really been an honor because, in our business, similar to yours, I mean, you get to know your customers. And for us, it's really our differentiator. I mean, we're not a 1-800 number. If you've got a problem, we're on your worst day or on your second to worst day. What I always tell people is, you're calling 910. You're not calling 800. You're not calling 80. And there is a difference to that. And so, obviously, there's unique exposures here. I mean, hurricanes are real. We know that. Leland in particular is a little bit set back, but even with Florence, category 1, 2 type hurricane, billions of dollars of damage. So, um, you we really take pride in the fact that we know our customers. We spend time educating them on their policies. Um, we don't want people being caught flat-footed. When a claim comes, you know what you've got. You know what's going to cover you for. And then if you need us, we're here. And when you call us, you're going to get a voice on the other end of the phone that you're probably familiar with. And I think there's something to that.
And I'll say, been a State Farm customer for about as long as I've known you, I think. That's about when I bought my policy. But without getting into too many
Yeah.
details, I had a claim years ago when I was driving a gray Ford Escape and I was parked in a parking lot and got backed into by a gray Ford Escape that was also a State Farm customer, if you remember
Oh,
that.
jeez.
And
Yeah.
that was interesting and challenging to deal with because you had two identical cars, both insured with the same company. And I
And
won't get
sometimes
into
you,
all the nuances of it, but there was some dispute over whose fault it was. But
right.
thankfully, I had photo evidence.
Yes. And I would tell you something, Frank. I don't use you by name, but I use that example when we are talking to people about, how you handle insurance, what do you do if there's a claim. And I've used your example several times because you are not at fault. But unfortunately, we're in a world where not everyone's honest. And they
Exactly.
tend to want to be more dishonest when they're dealing with insurance. I don't know why that is, but people are oftentimes are not can have a problem not telling the full truth when they're talking to an adjuster. In this case, this person was dead set on not telling the truth, and you had the photos, but for those photos, it could have been a different circumstance. But
I, I'm glad I had the clarity of thought in that moment to take pictures that showed that of the two cars, mine was the one sitting in a parking space,
it's
not the
kind of
one
hard to
backed
hit
into one
somebody when
sitting
you're
in a
parked in a
parking
parking
space.
spot. Yeah.
And
Yeah, over the
but
years, man, I mean, you just see a lot.
I
You,
believe
you,
it. I
you
believe it.
see a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. But you
Well,
handle
you
that with
mentioned
perfectly.
hurricanes, and obviously we're in an area where a lot of people are moving here from places that don't get hurricanes like we get here. What kind of things do people who are moving here that maybe aren't familiar with hurricanes? What kind of coverage advice would you give them on things to make sure they have in place and things to look at ahead of a storm?
Yeah, I mean, number one, you need to know what you have, and so oftentimes when people move, obviously you've got a checklist a mile, and if there's a mortgage or there's obviously a real estate closing, a lot of times the insurance kind of gets shuffled in there, and you just kind of accept and check off a box and move on. So first of all, my advice would be if that was you, and that's a lot of people, no problem with that. You need to stop, take some time, call your agency, and ask for a review of your coverage. Because we're in these coastal areas east of I-95, the high hurricane exposure, you're either one of two things is true. If you have wind coverage, you're probably going to have a separate deductible that's higher than your normal deductible. So you need to understand what that is and not be surprised if it's considerably higher than what your normal deductible is. Number two, you might have more than likely, you have a separate wind hail policy. So you want to make sure that coverage is consistent with whatever your homeowner's insurance coverage is. And then number three, if there is an exclusion on your homeowners, make sure that you got wind coverage somewhere. We have seen that where particularly folks that are not from this area, if they're 1-800 or they're .com, whatever, they're writing coverage. They don't understand that their company is excluding wind in these coastal markets. And then the customer doesn't know they don't have wind coverage. So having a conversation, preferably with somebody, doesn't have to be made, but a local agency that can talk to you about what your coverage needs are here and the coverage availability in this area. Take the time to do it. I don't expect you to do it every 6 months or every year, but every couple of years doesn't hurt to have a conversation. Make sure that the coverage amount of your homeowner's insurance is in line with the true construction cost. As we've seen, I mean, with construction costs and particularly cost of construction has gone through the roof. So if you bought a policy 10, 15 years ago, coverage amount might not have kept up with what the true inflation is in this area. Typically, a local insurance agent's going to have a pretty good idea of what new home construction costs are now. Um, and then you have to keep in mind also what's called demand surge. That's where if there is a big storm and you have a big loss, the cost under those circumstances are going to be much higher than if it was just your home that was damaged. So there's some coverages and some endorsements that are built in on the homeowner's policy to help protect you in this type of circumstances. But it all starts with a relationship and a conversation, and we just encourage everyone to have that, particularly if you're going to insure a home in this area, because it's not going to be the same oftentimes as what the coverage may have done if you come from the Midwest or you're coming from Northeast or wherever you come from.
Well, and you mentioned making sure that with the increase in construction costs that the insurance that they've got keeps up with that. I know a few years ago I had you look at mine because the county had just done the revaluation on property, and my value went up probably 40% in about 5 years with the way the market is here.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
was dramatically underinsured. And it's probably time to do that again. So put that on your to-do list to check mine out. But
For
I think
sure.
that's one thing is, every time you get a reval from the county, go back and talk to your agent. That's probably a good spur to talk to your agent about the cost. Maybe don't wait that long, but at a minimum, do it then.
Yeah. And so you're like, that is a good trigger and a good reminder for sure. And I'm not sure what's the cadence of the reevaluation. Is it 2
In
years?
Brunswick County, it's every 4 years.
Yeah. Okay. You've great trigger to go to talk to your agent. Um, there is a difference. Insurance companies are going to insure your property for what the actual cost of construction is, not the market value. But odds are high if market value is going up, demand is going up. So you got a supply
Yeah.
demand issue in construction too. So your cost to rebuild are going up. So absolutely, that's a good suggestion. Makes sense. Other thing is we hear all the time from people and that I'm not in a flood zone. That's not true. As everywhere where you're sitting, where I'm sitting, you are in a flood zone. You just may be in a preferred flood zone, but you are in a flood zone. And there are higher risk flood areas that we are aware of that are mapped that indicate that you're in a higher flood risk. But Mother Nature doesn't know where those lines begin and end. And every storm is different. And so I would encourage you, homeowners policies don't include groundwater, typically do not include water that comes from the ground up into your home. There are maps that agents can run for you to help determine, are you closer to a higher risk area? If you are, then you probably need to consider carrying the coverage, but at least understanding, what what the kind of what the risks are, what the cost
Right.
is associated with flood policy, so you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to carry that coverage. But I would not just ignore it altogether. I think it's important.
Yeah.
All of
And
us
I'll tell you
encourage.
my view on that. My house did not flood during Hurricane Florence, and I did not see any floodwaters. And the same in PTC 8. But I have flood insurance because all it would take is one clogged pipe somewhere in one of our retention ponds, and we're not far from those. And it wouldn't take much to change something and change the flow of that water. And I'd rather have it and not need it than wish I had it when I needed it.
There's a story with Florence, and I'm going to not name the area, but it was a local area, local to us, where a cul-de-sac had standing water. It damaged 3 or 4 houses on the cul-de-sac. And after Florence passed, the floodwaters did not go down. And so the city came in, couldn't figure out why it wasn't going down, and went to the storm drains, found out that somebody had cleaned a deer and stuffed a deer carcass into the storm drain, which caused that entire cul-de-sac to flood. So that's a unique circumstance. Obviously, point is, to your point,
Yeah.
you can have localized flooding. It doesn't have to be Atlantic Ocean in your front yard. It can be estuaries, it can be creeks, it can be retention ponds. I'm not trying to cause alarm, but I think that people need to be informed about the risk of it, understand that there are solutions to it, and if it makes sense for you to buy the coverage, buy the coverage. If not, you've made the decision not to.
Well, and one of the reasons I chose to, even though haven't seen flooding anywhere near anywhere within a half a mile of my house, is there are creeks on 2 sides of my house and a river on the third. Neither one of them are within a quarter of a mile, but still, it wouldn't take much for those to change, and to me, it's worth the extra expense. So
Yeah, peace of mind. I can't tell you how many people in Florence was coming. We thought that was going to be a Category 4 hurricane. At one point, it was going to be 5. It was going to come right up the Cape Fear River. How many people were leaving town terrified because they knew that they didn't have it, and they would have paid just about anything for it in that moment could they have bought it.
and it was too
So
late.
it's too late. Yeah, it's too late. At
Talk about
minimum, it's
what
30
is
days
that
wait.
trigger when it's too late? At what point can you not get it when there's a storm coming?
Well, so it's the National Flood Insurance Program, which is FEMA. It's a 30-day wait. So if you don't have it and you think about it, you probably want to start talking to your agent June, July at the latest, because you're really getting into storm season in earnest in August, as we know. And you really want it for, of course, the hurricane season. I mean, you can have floods from other events as well. We had that nor'easter that came,
Right.
well, the tropical storm came out of nowhere last year.
The nor'easter that was here this weekend.
Correct. Yeah. But typically, you're thinking hurricane for that. And so, if you want to be covered for hurricane season, early summer, start having that conversation.
Was there anything else insurance wise that you would want to share with people as far as advice you would give people or anything, any other tips or things to look out for that you would share before we change gears a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so North Carolina, fortunately, I mean, it's a competitive market. There are some states, particularly south of us, that are dealing with very significant insurance availability issues. Um, Coastal North Carolina is not going to, it's not going to, you're not going to have the same access to insurance that you would, say, if you're in Charlotte or Atlanta or one of these metro areas. But there's still a robust market. I think the insurance commissioner has done a pretty good job of balancing the needs of the insurance companies in terms of rate and protecting consumers so that you do have some competition. So, I mean, I think number one, relationship, have a conversation with your agent, have a good relationship with your agent. If you don't have that, you need to shop. And then just pay attention to your coverages, and you can, of course, there are options. So if you're not happy with what you have, you certainly go out in the market and shop for it. But I like I've said it a bunch. I really mean it. It's really important, whether it's us or whoever, that you're talking to somebody locally when you have an issue or who's writing a policy, because we've seen too many mistakes from people that are not in this area, do not understand the coverage in coastal New Zealand.
And I think that is great advice. I've heard the statement, there are 3,069 counties in America. And if you've been to one county, you've been to one county.
Yeah,
And that's why it's so important to have someone who understands the area writing. It's one thing if you're insuring a car, but property is different. Property is different. You need to have someone who understands the area.
Yeah, and you're also, you're helping. Like I have 8 full-time team members that have families, that have children, that are taxpayers. They're trying to build
That
a
live
life,
here
maintain a
themselves.
life here. So you're helping support your community by keeping your insurance local as well too.
And But to change gears a little bit, I always like for people to be able to get some business lessons from other business people when they listen to the podcast. So, one thing I'd love to hear is if there's something you've learned during your career that you wish you had known on day one.
That is a good question. So I would say if I'm giving advice to 25, 26-year-old me, it would be you have to have a balanced lifestyle. Number one. Number two, take it easy. Like, do not get completely consumed and stressed out over your business. I mean, it's important, but take advantage of the fact that we live in such a nice area. Create some healthier habits earlier on. Pick up some. There's so many hobbies you can pick up here that I didn't. I mean, I just honestly worked a lot, and I feel like I neglected 45-year-old me the opportunity to be better at some of these hobbies and have a little bit more. Of course, I'm very happy. I don't regret anything that I've done. I feel like I've made the most, or have tried to make the most of the opportunity given. But I would really work on having a balance, try to have a balanced life, take advantage of this just wonderful place that we live in, and do not take it for granted.
I think that is great advice. It's so many people get so consumed with their work and then they neglect everything else and wonder why at the end of the day work's all they have left sometimes. And
Yeah,
none of us want to be that person.
yeah. Your fitness is down, and your diet's bad, and your spiritual health isn't great, emotional health, all those things. When you get to be 45 or 50 or 50, and as you mature, like those things are so much more important than honestly your financial success, business success. So just don't neglect it. Take care of yourself. And I'm saying that I haven't, but if I'd go back to myself, I'd be like, just calm down.
I would say the same thing to
take it.
myself.
Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be
I would
fine.
say
Take it easy.
the same thing to a younger me as well. So I get that. And then, well, similar question. If somebody came to you and said, I'm starting out, want to get into the insurance business, what advice would you give that person?
Yeah, so there's a lot of options locally. I mean, I first of all, first thing, if you're trying to get into the P&C, so property and casualties, that's home, auto, business insurance, property damage type insurance, liability insurance, get your P&C license. Google it. It's not terribly hard to do. I think it's 40-hour studying. I've had a lot of people that have come to me looking for jobs when I've had openings and they have not had that license. And I can tell you right now, the ones that have it, 100% getting a leg up. So if you're even considering it, you can show the ambition, drive, and the ability to pass that test. That's the number one thing. Number two, as this area grows and it doesn't seem to be slowing down considerably, the property insurance needs are going to continue to grow. So we're going to need producers. We're going to need agents. And so there will be a lot of opportunity. And, I would go to work with someone. I wouldn't necessarily try to go out and start something on your own right away. I'd go to work with someone who can truly show you the ropes and they're willing to invest in you, trying to invest in your growth. We try to do this, and we've done this in my agency when we got a young gentleman who's working with me now. He has agency ambitions. So he's learning how to not only be an agent, but learning how to be a business person, learning how to treat people, learning how to manage staff, learning how to treat staff. Figuring out what's really important, good customer service, honesty, being able to connect well with people. So find agents or agencies, and there are a bunch of them. There are a bunch of really good ones out there. There are a bunch of good ones in Leland. Mark Ellenberg Farm Bureau, they run a really good operation over there. Get the license, and then don't be afraid to knock on somebody's door if you want to work for them. I mean, I can tell you, if somebody walked in here, if they had the right stuff and they had the right confidence and they had their license, even if I wasn't looking to hire, I would probably consider hiring. So, because we know the growth's coming. I mean, we know it's going to continue to happen. The customer service needs are going to continue to grow, and the opportunities to write business should continue to grow as well.
And I think that's all great advice, especially the part about not trying to start your own thing if you haven't ever been into business. And I know I run into people who try to go all out on day one. And while that's admirable, there's so much to be learned from a mentor who's been there and done that. And you may not even know this, but 25, 30 years ago, I had my insurance license. I was at a
I
life
knew that.
insurance company for a
Yep.
while, and then after that, I had my P&C license, and the experiences were very different at the two. And neither one of them were what I was wired to do. But at the life insurance company, they had a lot of training. There were people there who had been in that business for 20 and 30 years who could give you that advice. And then for a little while, tried to work with a friend who had a P&C agency, and it was a one person agency, and there was really no training, and I had no idea what to do. And I finally decided I didn't want to do it because I just felt like I was kind of aimlessly drifting, and there was no structure and no institutional knowledge for me to learn from, like you were just talking about.
Yeah,
So,
and you're not going to get it everywhere, but so you're going to
no,
have to find the ones that are willing to take the time to invest in you, and that's a big commitment from an agent or a broker or one of these or any business that you go into, someone to make that kind of investment, because they may not get a
absolutely.
return on the full return. So,
Uh,
like a Josh London, same thing. Like somebody like that has high character, that wants the best for his clients, and you feel like that you can create a trust relationship with. I mean, you just can't beat the value of mentorship. Like
um,
it is
and I would say,
unprofound. Like there's no way in heck that I would be here without Pam Herndon and Paul Ogland. Gary Elliott. They just hired me when I was coming out of college and didn't know what the hell I was doing. So if find people that are willing to do, there are people out there that'll do it. And if you can find them, whatever occupation you're in, it is absolutely priceless.
and I would encourage anybody looking for a job in any arena to ask that question: what type of training and what type of investment do you make in developing your people to make sure they're equipped to do the job? Because I think it's critical, and it goes to the mentality of the business owner as well. I love the quote that the accountant says, "What if we invest in training them and they leave?" And the CEO said, "Well, what if we don't invest in training them and they stay?" You want that person to be as equipped as they can possibly be if they're working with you.
Yeah. And
And
if you help them, and smart business people know, if you help people get what they want, you're going to give it to you.
exactly.
And if you're helping somebody grow and mature and thrive, like they are going to produce. And so when they leave, they're probably going to help you, because of the relationship, and it's extremely rewarding when you're working with someone and you're helping them along and they start to achieve. I mean, I've seen it in our office, and obviously I'm an example of that. So, of somebody that has achieved because someone else gave me an opportunity when at the time, really, I was wondering. I didn't know what I wanted to do. and I probably wasn't very hireable, to be honest with you.
We all are a lot more mature than we were 25 years ago.
Yeah, correct.
Um,
Oh yeah,
and,
for sure.
well, to close this out, I always like to ask another more personal question at the end, and I'll give you several questions, and you can pick which one you want to answer.
We go.
But what are you either currently reading, or what kind of podcast do you like to listen to? Or if you don't want to talk about any of those, what movies or TV shows do you listen to? And some people give their professional development answer, and some people give
Yeah,
their get away
I'll
from
be
business answer.
candid. So I just passed the Series 65, and it was the most amount of studying I've done in 25 years.
I
So I am
believe it.
not reading anything other than
But if you were reading, what would it be?
well, see, I mean, of course, I keep up with CNBC, Wall Street Journal, but and my kids unfortunately dominate the TV more than we should allow. But absolutely love crime drama, love true crime. We're watching the show "What's the Task" on HBO now. That's a crime drama show. So like the night of True Detective is the best show that's ever been made, hands down. Absolutely love those. No Country for Old Men, favorite movie, hands down by far. So definitely like the crime drama. And I don't, unfortunately, don't spend a lot of time on podcasts. Probably should, but if I did, it probably would be crime porn stuff like true crime type.
Right.
Yeah, which probably isn't the most healthy thing to listen to.
Yeah. I watch a lot of the crime dramas myself. I think I've seen every Chicago PD episode, every NCIS, every
Law
SWAT,
and
every
Order.
FBI, Law and Order, you name it, I've
Yeah.
probably seen it.
Yeah,
I
man. Well,
always
there
get
was a period of about 10 years, maybe 15, Law and Order Criminal Intent, Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Like I watched every single one of them. We don't get a lot of
right.
TV time much anymore. And when we do, oftentimes it's something that kids are involved in.
So whatever the kids choose. Yeah, it's interesting the answers I get on that question. I interviewed an economist locally who you probably have met and heard speak, and I expected him to talk about some economics podcast. He said it's all about NBA basketball. That's what he listens to because he doesn't want to listen to anything that has to do with work when he's listening to a podcast.
We
And
just shut it down. Yeah. So I mean, I
yeah,
listen on
exactly.
the way. Some of my favorite parts of the day are the commute to my office because traffic's not that. It really is not that bad, and it's
You're going the
beautiful.
opposite way of it.
Going the opposite way. Yeah. So I'm privileged there, but it's a beautiful drive. Going back, same thing. Being able to listen to college sports radio on Sirius XM for 15 minutes and just being completely carefree. It is the golden. It's like call it the golden drive.
Right. Well, mine is
Um,
on my Sirius XM is on 80s Hair Nation most of the time.
yeah. Oh man. Heck yeah. I love it. Oh yeah. Awesome. I did not know that, Frank. I think a lot more of you now.
Yeah, yeah, that's my generation now. Was
Heck
there
yeah.
anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, yeah. Well, so I'll just say, Frank, it has been a privilege to know you for, and I remember when you introduced yourself to me, and I knew who you were. That you introduced yourself to me at a chamber event 18, 19 years ago, and you've been a friend of mine since. You supported my business. And I just, I'm really proud to be a friend of yours. I'm also proud of our success and how much we've grown and how much things have changed and how fortunate we both are to be here and have had success. But it's not that hard
Thank you.
work. But it's really cool to see you where you are and see where I am. And I'm grateful for our friendship. Thank you for having me on the phone.
Well, and likewise, and thank you for joining us. And for everyone who's watching this, if you want to follow us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, you can do so at capefearbusiness.com. And we hope you'll tune in again next week. Franklin,
Yep.
thank you again.
Yes, sir. Take care, Frank.